Excuse me? Did you just ask what was BGK Network for? I'm glad that you asked. Let me get the number up because I know you're going to call. So BGK was founded by Michael. What happened to the number? The number's at the top of the screen now. But anyway, get the number. As I was saying, BGK Network was founded by... It's at the bottom of the screen. Really? Really? Okay. I'm sorry for calling you Michael. Apostle, just put me back where I can talk. Just put me back, please. Wow, some people are so sensitive, right? But seriously, what you just saw was a sample of what Apostle Michael Dulaney and Evangelist Tiffany can do through virtual ministry with BGK Network. They founded BGK to help people like you and myself to put the gospel out around the world. It's a great opportunity. I do encourage you to call the number. It's more affordable than you think. Give them a call. I did.
Hello again, and welcome to the Trinity is Excellent. I am your host, Pastor Dr. Yvette Trim Jackson, and today we are going to be talking about homelessness. I have a very special young lady here who is also a minister, and I'm going to have her introduce herself as we get started to talk about homelessness.
Good afternoon. My name is Minister Tracy Richardson, and I am a member at the Body of Christ Deliverance Ministries, where we are located at 741 West 115th Street in Chicago, Illinois. And my apostle is Prophet Dr. Tanisha Lee, and our bishop is Bishop Dr. Anthony Lee, and our founder is Apostle Dr. Yvonne Lee Wilson.
Okay. Well, with that said, again, I said we're going to talk about homelessness today. And this is the Trinity is Excellent. If you would like to reach us, you can always email me at thetrinityisexcellent@gmail.com. Okay, so first off, homelessness. This is something that is seen all over the world. There is no place that you really can't go and not see it. We used to see it in the airports a lot, but behind the pandemic, I'm not sure if that's a place where homeless people can really stay there anymore because of the restrictions. Also, I know Minister Tracy and myself worked at Stroger Hospital, the old Cook County, and I know that that was a place that many of the homeless also were able to kind of stay and sit to get from outside. As well as we know that when we say homeless, many of them are on the street though. And at certain times of the day, security would ask them to leave out, and then they would come back in. But overnight, it was a place they could sit in the waiting room of the emergency room. And during the course of the day, the walk-in clinics, they could go and sit in various waiting areas there to get out of the outside from the heat or the cold, or simply just to, snooze a little bit. However, in Chicago, we know that there are a lot of other places. There used to be Lower Wacker, which many of the homeless house themselves there with make their own tents out of blankets or whatever they could find until that area was kind of cleaned up and they were, relocated. But there is also places near the expressway, actually 12th Street for sure is one where along the expressway on one of the sides there are plenty of homeless people there with their little tents that they've made and whatever little things they can kind of put together to have in their little space. So, but that is not the best. Unfortunately, I've seen passing through there. I've seen humongous size rodents running around out there in the daytime as well as at night. So it certainly would not help me because I am really frightened of rodents. If I see one, I'm ready to go. They can have the space. However, with the homelessness, Tracy, do you have something to say about that before we get ready to? I'm going to give some few statistics about homeless that I looked up for here in Illinois. But did you have something you wanted to say?
I mean, when you think about homelessness, as you had already stated, that it's everywhere. And a lot of times, the thing about homelessness, we seem to want to characterize it and put it in a specific category, and yet not to understand and know that there are people that are homeless that go to their job every day. There are people that are homeless that when you look at their outer appearance, they're clean, they're neat, they're together. You wouldn't even necessarily know that they were homeless until you begin to interact with them and have conversation with them. And that's even only if they decide to open up and share that information with you. And unfortunately, when you think about how many people that are homeless, but yet how there is such a lack of resources for them and being in a homeless state. And I don't want to go too far ahead of you, Pastor, so I'll kind of let you guide. But yes, the main thing that I have a concern for when it does come to the homeless is that we as a people need to come outside of a box and just thinking that a person is only homeless because of course if we see them looking a certain way, and even at times some when we feel because they might have odor or their appearance may say, oh, they must be without. But yet to know that homelessness does not just deal with people that have an odor or because their clothing may not look up to par, but yet you yourself might work with a coworker and not even realize and know that they're in a state of being homeless.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true. And before we go even a little bit further into that, I just wanted to read some of the information that I got about homelessness for the year of 2021. And according to that, they said that 11% of Illinois is homeless. I tend to think it's probably even greater than that. Total population they gave of 14,055, and they said that we rank as a state at 39 for homelessness. However, many people are homeless in Illinois in 2021, and probably even more this year because when we look at prices, how things have really gone up, how jobs were lost and folded, because of the pandemic. That's another reason. And then the state of people being able even to get to jobs, that's another thing. Totally 4,447 people experiencing homeless was the count identified. 3,023 individuals experience homes residing in shelters, and an estimated 702 to 1,000 454 people are experiencing homelessness on the streets. And again, I say the numbers are probably even greater because this was kind of based on census too, the census count. And if you don't know, I'm going to tell you that the census doesn't always get information from everybody because everybody is not contacted. The people who are actually out on the street, or even sometimes if they are residing in someone else's home, they may not be accounted for because sometimes it could be that they're really not supposed to be there according to the lease of an apartment. Sometimes due to maybe they're not legal for this country, they don't want to come forth, out of fear. And of course, on the streets, if they're just out on the streets, they may not even be in the same place every day. And we don't know that the people who go out to collect these census actually go into set homeless spots, as we know. And even as we said, like sitting in the hospital or used to be the airports, if they really encountered them. As Minister Tracy also said, there's people who are coming to work every day as a co-worker, who are homeless, but again, that is not the information that may be shared with census people. And I can tell a story of myself because I did experience that at one point in my life. But before we get there, I just want to throw out the question of who do you think the homeless are? And Tracy, you've kind of answered some of that because a lot of times people think homeless are only those who are poor, those with sicknesses, mental, mainly a lot with mental issues, in the fact that a lot of times there's no one to oversee them, and if they don't take the medication, sometimes it really affects them, so they are not functioning like they should. However, there's other circumstances such as sickness. Again, a person becomes sick, they can't work, possibly lose their source of income, can't maintain a residence, the bills are astronomical, and they may find themselves out on the street. Then there's other times where people are kind of, you could say, betrayed. They are in a place and they're putting their money up and they think that it's being paid, and lo and behold, to their surprise, one day they find out they're being sit out because it hasn't been paid. Yeah, it could be the landlord. I've even heard cases of they're giving the money to who they're sharing their apartment with, and they haven't been paying it, but they didn't know it until, wow, my stuff is out on the street, or here's a notice, we're getting put out. What is going on, So that is another thing, homelessness. And even sometimes with generations, we want to leave our children an inheritance. And I've seen too sometimes where a house has been paid for, that grandparent died, the grandchildren are there, and they really have not been informed, educated to know that, this house is paid for, but you need to pay property taxes, you need to do upkeep on it. So in essence, they wind up losing the house where someone comes in and scoops it up simply just for the taxes on that house. But as we said, the question, who do you think are the homeless? And you've kind of answered that it's not just the poor. It's not those that just carry an odor because they don't have access to facilities to wash, have deodorant, get their clothes cleaned. But there are people from all walks of life who can find themselves homeless. And so I listed two in there that yes, certainly there are the poor who become
Mhm.
homeless.
Mhm.
There's the sick. We went through that
Mhm.
with the mental issues
Mhm.
and sometimes terminal illnesses. I'll say those who don't have family. You know,
Mhm.
sometimes that can happen. That something happens, they're out there and they really don't have anyone they can go and stay with. You know,
Mhm.
many people are not open to let someone come and stay in their house,
Mhm.
and then if they do, you know, it's far and few between. You find somebody
Yes.
who's going to let you come in and not pay anything till you get
Mhm.
on your feet or
Mhm.
whatever. And then you got to remember, if you're under someone else's domain, you've got to abide by their rules, you
Mhm.
know. So sometimes people go in like that, but it just doesn't work out.
Mhm.
Sometimes it may be they're abused, some molestation may take place, all kinds of things that can happen, may not be
Mhm.
the safest. And then with the shelters, that's another story there too.
Mhm.
And a lot of times I know in talking to people, they didn't want to go in shelters because there they had to watch their backs for what
Mhm.
little bit of stuff they did have left.
Mhm.
And again, I just want to tell my story about it. I am a retired nurse, but there was a point where I had a house and I began to get break-ins, and it got to be like every day I came home, it was like, okay, let's go in and see if somebody's been in the house today.
Mhm.
You know, at that time, and I had a daughter who was sick. My son was beginning to try to run to the streets. My husband was just out, and it got to the thing of like, I don't want to live here.
Mhm.
This is not, living. So I had a house. My house was not behind. The mortgage was paid up, but I didn't want to continue to stay there because,
Mhm.
like I said, who wants to work all day, come in, and you're not resting well because you don't know if somebody's coming in, if somebody's
Mhm.
been in. So I called the mortgage people and I told them I wanted the house secured, and I moved in to my dad's house, which he had a house not far from where I was living with my sister. And like she said, I was going to work every day. Thank God I did have a place I could go, and I did
Mhm.
have access where we had soap, water, those type of things. Uh, put furniture in storage, paying a storage bill, still paying bills, and going to work every day like
Mhm.
everything was okay.
Mhm.
And you're right, I that was not something that I shared with uh, people that I worked with.
Mhm. Mhm.
Very few people knew that. My trunk was filled to the gill. I can remember driving in, and I would cry sometimes all the way to work after I dropped my daughter off, and saying,
Mhm.
God, you are my covering, and I want out of this house. I don't want it. And I even thought about letting it go into foreclosure. And people say, "Oh, you don't want to do that." I said, "Let me hear about this. What really happens?"
Mhm.
But that is not a good way to go. And
Mhm.
I thank God I didn't go that way. I was able to sell the house. But yes, I was homeless. And when I got to work, I put my smile on because I felt people were coming in for a service, and I was there to deliver it.
Mhm.
I wasn't there to share my story and sob on their shoulders.
Mhm.
Plus, I always believed God is with me. It
Mhm.
doesn't seem great and everything, but I'm in the desert now. I have this, I have that, but yet I'm not enjoying it. But God is aware.
Amen.
And on that note, uh, Minister Tracy, you want to come in and talk a little bit about what you experienced?
Okay. Well, it wasn't too long ago. One of my co-laborers in Christ, she had reached out to me, and she was sharing the story with me of a young lady that had began to come visit their church. And after having a little conversation with the young lady, she found out that the young lady was homeless. She was actually living in her car. And so, me being one that I believe in resources, but not just to know of resources, but resources that will really benefit those that the resources were created for. And so, in her sharing the story with me, I began to reach out to my various networks to see if there was a place that could help this young lady, because I really began to think about what if I was in this young lady's shoes, and how would I feel, and that I too would want someone to help me if they were able to help me. And just being a remembrance of God teaches us that we are our sisters and brothers keeper, that we are to be helpers one to another. And so, with that being said, I began to reach out, like I said, to the various ones in my network, and thanking God that after reaching out to various places, because I was really so surprised at how many responses that I got of various ones that did know of places to try and help the young lady. But we end up having a roadblock, and the roadblock being again where various places would not accept the young lady because they had different stipulations that were required, and some of them required her to have a child. The young lady didn't have a child, it was just her. Then there are other ones that said, well, is she an alcoholic? Then other ones said, is she a drug addict? There were so many different stipulations that the woman of God had to have in order for her just to receive this help. And I began to think about that, and I said, oh wow, that is amazing. So it's basically was like majority of the system is set up that if you don't have a chronic or a serious issue going on with you, that it's even more challenging for you to be able to receive help. Again, this was a young lady that she was working her job, just like Pastor Trim just said, doing everything that she was supposed to do, but yet ended up finding herself on hard times. And we all live in the year 2022. Now, understanding, no, because for those of us that drive, we know that gas is extremely high. It has gone up. Not just gas, but the cost of your food, when you think about not just gas that go in your car, the gas for your home, your electricity bill. So all the things of necessity that is required for us when we do reside in a home, the prices have gone up. But when you work your job doesn't come to you and say, well, we know gas prices is going up, food is going up, so we're going to increase your pay. And for most of us that work on jobs, we understand and know that is not the case. The job is not in a place where they say, well, because of the economy is going up, we're going to make sure that you be able to take care of yourself. So with the young lady, that was what her challenge had began to be, that she was working a job, but got to a place where the amount of money that she was working, it was not enough for her to be able to continue to maintain living in her apartment. And I know there may be some that say, well, when you know the cost of living is going up, then why don't you try to better yourself? I get that. But at the same time, when you think about going to better yourself, that means that's going to require you to go to school. And then going to school, I don't know about y'all, but most places when you're trying to get certified or you're trying to get a degree, that requires what? Again, you got to have an income. You have to have money to pay for that. And so, again, the young lady just found herself where the income that she was making, it began to not be enough to just meet her needs. And so she ended up having to move. But thankfully, we ended up finding a place that took in young women, and it didn't require her to have a child or any other issues going on, and that they were able to help her. And my thing of it is, when I was sharing it with Pastor Yvette, my thing was that a lot of times resources are out here, but sometimes the resources are so limited in order for you to get the help that you need. And I just feel that some of the resources need to be broadened. You need to look at the whole scope. Because just like Pastor Yvette just shared her story, sometimes you can be doing everything that you're supposed to be doing, but yet can still find yourself in a state of being homeless. And of course, most people will feel, because they comment, they say, oh, well, they must be homeless because they must got a drinking problem or an alcoholic problem, or it's something that they not doing right. But yet here it is, Pastor Yvette said her mortgage was paid in full. It was paid. It was on time. She wasn't delinquent. She wasn't behind. But her environment, became an environment that she did no longer feel safe in. So again, that still falls under the category of you're homeless because she wasn't able to go to her home. And so, in just talking about homelessness, I'm hoping that in us having these conversations, especially when we think about the body of Christ, because a lot of times we have resources, but we don't have a tendency to share the resources with one another in a way that we could share the resources. We just keep it in our limelight, if you want to say, and not share it with others. But as being believers in the body of Christ, we should share even the more. So when information does arises, and not necessarily having to wait for someone to reach out to you in regards to, but yet once you learn about it, do you take the time out to share it with someone else?
Hmm. Yeah, that's so true. And like you said, yeah, my mortgage was paid up to
Mm-hmm.
date.
Mm-hmm.
It was with one of the top banks,
Mm-hmm.
Chase Manhattan, and my credit score was 800, but yet I was still
Without a
homeless,
home. Mm-hmm.
Um, and that can happen. And
Mm-hmm.
another thing too with that, when someone becomes homeless and they are struggling because of economy or sickness or whatever, where the finances are not meeting what they need, it's
Mm-hmm.
even harder to get back up on your feet and get
Yes.
into a place.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you mentioned the young lady, and
Mm-hmm.
as a young lady or a lady with children,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you can't live anywhere.
No.
There are certain areas you just it's not
Safe.
feasible for you to
Mm-hmm.
be there,
Mm-hmm.
because you going in those areas, it
Mm-hmm.
really makes you a target.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is nowadays with getting apartments,
Mm-hmm.
a credit check is generally required.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fee for that, which the person has to pay,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes even a background check,
Yes,
and they
you
have to
have to
pay
pay
for
for that
that,
too.
and
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't guarantee they will get the place.
No.
Then sometimes if they have children, that knocks them out
Mm-hmm.
because the property does not want children
Mm-hmm.
on the premises. So there's many things that will eliminate, and
Mm-hmm.
at least you forget 2 months security
Security.
deposit to go
Mm-hmm.
in, and then that first month's rent.
Mm-hmm.
So there's many things that can leave a person being homeless for quite some time unless they get some assistance, some help.
Mm-hmm.
I always say the Trinity is excellent because God is aware of everything. He knows everything, and He is the provider. He provides everything for us because He's the door opener. He's the way maker. He provides a way of escape,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what when I talk about the Trinity being excellent, it is because and it says even if you think of Jesus, where it says He's experienced everything that we
Mm-hmm.
have, and
Mm-hmm.
He said even He talked about He was homeless
Mm-hmm.
and let His disciples know. But we are coming down to a close. Our time is getting out. I hope this has opened up some people's eyes about
Yes.
homelessness, and that if they do know some resources, that they
Yes.
would share, that they
Yes.
would bring them to your local churches,
Yes.
even maybe where they work, just
Mm-hmm.
maybe put up bulletins, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Put it out. Just in general conversations, begin
Yes.
to talk about it because it's definitely there.
Mm-hmm.
And we always put God first
Amen.
because He's the one who provides everything. As I said before, we always remember the Trinity is excellent
Yes.
because God provides everything we need, even
Amen.
direction when we don't know which way to go.
Amen.
So if you want to contact us, you can always email us at thetrinitysexcellent@gmail.com. And come back again and join us for the second part of homelessness.